Okay, we are recording. So I recorded this last fall and apparently the audio didn't work. So we're doing this from home. This is actually Professor David Tarrien. He is our property professor at WMU-Cooley Law in Grand Rapids, but he is also a disability law expert. So we are doing, I had asked him some questions regarding Gemini for Gemini's YouTube channel, and we're going to redo that interview. Thank you for being here, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So first question, you actually, for when I was in property too, you had Gemini with me in class while he was still very young in his training. Could you describe how that was from your perspective as a professor in class?
Yeah, well, most of the time it was if he wasn't even there. He was very well trained dog, even when he was very young. There were the moments where it was evident that he was in training were were barely disruptive. In fact, for the most part, frankly, it was a nice relief for the students from the drone of my voice, so that was okay. But yeah, no, he was great, and it was evident that he's been through some very serious training, and he was interiorizing that and doing very, very well.
Thank you. He's a good boy. He's off camera. He probably won't show up for this video.
That's
And we'll talk about the differences between the service dogs in training and full-fledged service dogs in a minute. But for now, there's only two reasons in public that service dogs can be asked to leave: if they're not house trained or if they're being disruptive and the handler cannot bring them under control. Did you ever experience either of those or anything anywhere near it with him in class?
no, not even a little bit. And again, with even though there isn't any specific certification, the folks who train service animals generally and yours specifically take it very seriously, and the animals are ready to do their job. They're a tool, and a necessary tool, to level the playing field for anybody with a disability who
Yeah,
has a service animal.
they're a huge blessing. It's nice to see as a trainer and a handler, see the difference they make. Um,
Right.
So, and as a disability law expert, those two, the standards where you could remove a service dog, are those standards reasonable in your eyes?
Uh, if they're related to the more general legal principles, the main reason or defense for anybody to not provide a reasonable accommodation, which is what animals like Gemini are, is if it is creating an undue hardship on the business. So, because that's a broad term, there are a bunch of facts that could possibly fit or not fit into it.
Yeah.
And related to that, if the animal or the accommodation presents a direct threat to either the person with a disability or the people that they're going to be around. And so, for the most part, um, it could be used as pretext to say, we just don't want this animal around.
Yeah.
I'd say it's a starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
but there's
for
room for.
how, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. There's always room for argument, though.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, we're in law school. You're a
Right.
professor. I'm in law
Exactly.
school. Come on, let's argue now.
Exactly.
And considering the wide range of service dog abilities, it's really good, to have that and say, okay, we can go from here and make it more individualized.
Right.
And going back to service dogs in training, I know we've talked about it. The Americans with Disabilities Act doesn't cover the service dogs in training at all.
No.
Do you think the protection should be extended? It's done state by state now, and our state of Michigan has wonderful protections for service dogs and those in training.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still a few states that don't protect them at all, or their protections are, well, if it's an owner trained or it's not one of the larger organizations that train service dogs, they're not protected. Do you think
Right.
that the protection should be extended to service dogs in training across the board under the ADA with the same behavior requirements?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the underlying policy behind all this is to level the playing field for people with disabilities. It's a civil rights statute, and if there is an accommodation or a tool that could be readily used and used in a consistent fashion, that should be a priority, and the law should be interpreted to create that consistency and uniformity across the country.
I would agree with that, training them, but we'll see if the ADA ever gets updated at this point.
Yeah,
We've
yeah,
kind of gone
well, you
away
know.
from that.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah. You know, as with many marginalized populations, it's an easy thing to put on the back burner when we've got pandemics and world crises and things like that, even though it
This
should
is
always
true.
be at the forefront.
Agreed, wholeheartedly. You know, and we've discussed. The last question I had for you: what would you say from a disability advocate's perspective, from someone that's done disability law, to those who try to pass off their pets as service dogs? What would you say to them specifically?
You know, take take the uh, take the term seriously. You know, again, this is the Americans with Disability Act is as I said before, a civil rights act. It provides access to a life that most of us who are fully able-bodied take for granted. And so the animals, the service animals, are a tool that creates access to take that and pass a pet off, for instance, as a service animal, just because you want to take it onto a plane or something, um, it makes it harder for people who need the accommodation to be taken seriously. So don't be a jackass. Just
That
get,
works.
but you can get a related horse. uh, yeah, so what is that? Horse, miniature ponies
Miniature horse.
and
Miniature
miniature
horse.
horse.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, miniature horses and dogs
Yep.
are the animals that are classified as service animals.
Yep.
Um, everything else would be, what's the designation, Shonda, for every other animal that helps?
Emotional support animal.
An emotional support animal. Yeah,
Yep.
that's right. So, and
Glorified pet. No
well, yeah,
offense. Don't get me
well,
wrong. I get
I was
people
going
that
to say
you know.
they have
I
their
understand
place,
that.
but yeah,
Yes.
they have their place, but it is not as it is not as either necessary or specifically narrowly tailored to the tasks as service animals and animals with that designation.
Yeah, they're not task trained at all. There's
Right.
actually no behavior requirements for them, which, you know, having flown with my first service dog, Aslan, several times, you know, I've seen ESAs on airplanes, and they can basically behave however they want, and they don't have to worry about getting kicked off unless they're biting somebody. And even then, that doesn't happen sometimes. They don't get kicked
Right.
off. And, you know, that's a danger to not only everybody else, but it's a danger to my animal, my service dog that I've spent all this time training, or that someone has gotten from an organization that's trained. Okay, I'll get off that
Yeah.
soapbox.
Yeah. 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 No, I mean, you know, and they are essentially emotional support animals are a security blanket. Um, a service animal is more akin to a wheelchair
Yes.
or a cane or even a pair of glasses. It
Yeah.
performs specific tasks that allows access,
Yeah.
and without that tool, access would be much more difficult.
Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to add, to say, to share? I know you've seen Gemini from what, he was 5 months old when he first joined me, and
Yeah.
he's 20 months old today, actually, the 18th.
Oh, happy birthday.
So yeah, he'll be 2 in September. I can't believe it.
Yeah. No, other than to say that I think still the service animals are an underutilized tool. So if you are a person with a disability and think that a service animal would help make life qualitatively better for you, explore the options. And I'm sure Shonda has resources for you
Yes.
to be able to access various training centers and ways that the service animals are used.
Well, and I actually have a client that has this puppy. Oh my gosh, he's amazing. He's 4 months old. He's an English Mastiff puppy, so he's not going to be as tall as Gemini, but he's going to weigh more. Um,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
he's going to be for PTSD. He's for a veteran. He's
Mhm.
been training. I've been training him. We meet 3 days a week for since he was 10 weeks old, and he's 16 weeks yesterday. Um, and he already has learned block and cover from in front and behind for being out in public. You know, we haven't done that in public yet, but he's learned those commands. He's already got his basic and intermediate obedience with distractions. Hi, Gemini joined us. Hi,
So we
buddy.
did.
And he's just laid back, calm. I mean, this puppy is, if every dog were as easy to train for service work as him and Gemini, it'd be nice. Not the
Right.
case. But it's so cool to get to see that and see, you know, what they're capable of. And
Yeah.
so, and we train from a distance. You know, they've been on at the Outer Banks for the last week. We've been
really?
on FaceTime. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to leave. It's been like almost 10 days and you don't want to put that big of a gap into training. So we've gotten on FaceTime on our normal days and done our training, and he's done really well with it.
Very cool.
So
Very cool. All right.
well, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.